Hey Chesam and Beis, yesterday we said in the Mishnah, spoke about the idea of Mikudeshes, Aryai and Mikudeshes. If there's a rumor that they're Mikudash, so then they're Mikudash, and if there's a rumor that they're Megurash, so then they're Megurash. And we said in the Gemara that the rumor that she's Mikudash, that's the rumor that she's Mikudash, but the rumor that she's Meguresh is not so pashut, because it can't just be that she's a rumor that she's Megurash, because since when do we say that a woman who has a rumor to be Megurash is actually Megurash? So we said the case must be where the rumor was that she was both Mikudash and then Megurash to the same person. So in that case, Mikudash or Megurash, so then we're going to believe the rumor, because as it says on the top of Pei Tesam and Aleph, Kol V'Shovro Imo. Rama Pei Tesam and Aleph, and I guess we're going to get only till Pei Tesam and Beis halfway down, and that's what we'll pick up tomorrow for those that'll be here in the shir tomorrow. Amarava Yatzala Shem Mizane Ba'ir Ein Choshin La. If the name Mizaneh she becomes known as a Mizaneh, Ein Choshen La, we don't listen to the rumor that she's a Mizaneh. What would be the nafkamin if she's a Mizaneh? So if she's Mizaneh L'Ovei Kochavim Mula'eved, so Rashi tells us she would be Pasam Min HaKahuna. Seemingly this is talking about a single girl, a Penuya, and there's a rumor that she was Mizaneh with an Ovei Kochavim and an Eved, so she will be Asu Takuna. We don't believe that rumor. It says the Gemara, my time, because we assume that she wouldn't actually have Znush, she didn't actually have Bia, but she might have been doing Pritzus with them. She might have been doing inappropriate things, but we don't assume the worst, that she had Bia. If she didn't have Bia, then she would still be mutter to a Kohen. Kitznai, we see the same idea. Now this Machlokes, the fire Machlokes is by a married woman, but we see the same idea that we don't assume the worst, that they had Bia, but we actually can just assume Pritzusa Bialma. Where do we see that? Achla Bashuk. This is talking to us as well. You're never supposed to eat in the shuk. So if the married woman is eating in the shuk, it's a sign of bad things to come. Girgara b'shuk. If she's walking with her head held high in the shuk. Hey nika b'shuk. You see this for people all the time. If she's nursing in the shuk, bekulan Rabbi Meir Omer Teitze. If she does any of these things, you gotta divorce her, because the ma'aseh must be that she's mizaneh. Rabbi Akiva Omer Misha Yisu v'Yidnu ba Mozos Blavan. You don't have to divorce her yet. She does these things in the shuk. You know when you have to divorce her? When the yentas start talking about her. The Mozos Blavan are the people that sit there and they weave by looking at the moon, and then they talk about all the hak. These are like the Lashon Hara people par excellence. So once they start talking about this woman, so you know if they start talking about you, even though they speak Lashon Hara about everybody, if they start talking about you, so then Lamaisa, this reminds me of, right, they always say about the stories, you tell all the stories of the Gedolim, and sometimes we say, I don't know, do I believe the story? It's hard to believe. I said, you can believe it, you don't have to believe it. All I know is that they're not telling those stories about me and you. So over here, at the end of the day, Lamaisa, we're saying the same thing here. That over here we're saying that when they're in the shuk, so when these women are telling the stories about you, about this woman, so we have to assume that she was mizan, and therefore the husband has to give a get. Amar lo, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, but Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says to them, and he argues, says, no. Then you're never going to have a woman who stays married to her husband. Why? Because if the husband or the woman have any enemies, what are they going to do? They're going to start a rumor that she was mizana. They're going to start a rumor that she was doing something wrong, that she was nursing in the shuk. So, and the Torah says, Ki matzah ba'ervas davar, you have to find something really wrong with you. Can't find something wrong. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri argues and says, Mal halan davar barer, Avkan davar barer. And that's where you see again, he holds like Rava, that if you just see her, if there's Yatzal Hashem Mizaneh Ba'ir, whether by a single woman or by a married woman, we don't believe it, because we assume Pritzusa Be'alma Dechazil, unless it's a davar barer, unless we know for sure, we have evidence, we have Eidim that come and testify that she was actually Mizaneh, then we're not going to believe the rumor. Tanu Rabbanan, Be'ula Ein Choshishin La. If we hear a rumor that the woman was Be'ula, that she was already Be'ula and she's not a Besula, and therefore she can't marry the Kohen Gadol. Nisua Ein Choshin La. We have a rumor that she was married, we don't listen to it. Arus Ein Choshin La. She's an Arus, we don't listen to it. Shaloli Ploni Ein Choshin La. We heard a rumor that she's married, but Lamaisa, we don't know the name of the guy. Okay, it should be the biggest problem. If she doesn't know the name of the guy, then we're really in trouble. But Shalola Ploni, we know that she's married, or she's engaged, that she doesn't, we don't know the name of the guy, we're not going to listen to that rumor. If we hear that she got married in another city, we don't listen to that rumor. Mamzeres Ein Choshin La. If we hear that somebody's a mamzer, we don't listen to that. Shifcha Ein Choshin La. We hear that somebody's a shifcha, we don't listen to that rumor. Hikdish Ploni Nechasav, Hifgir Ploni Nechasav Ein Choshin La. If we hear that Ploni was mafgir the Nechasim or maftish Nechasim, we don't listen to him. The problem is, what's wrong with this Tana Rabbanan here? What did we say yesterday? yesterday. We said mikudeshes harezim mikudeshes. If there's a rumor that a person is mikudeshes, then we consider her to be mikudeshes. Over here we're saying arusa. If there's a rumor that somebody's an arusa, ein choshishin la. We don't listen to the rumor. Look at Rashi on the right, a few lines up. La arusa le kohen gadol. Did dilma produce me'al machazula? Dehad it's not b'mas nisan dechayshinon lekala. Hainu not a kala like a woman lekala the kol. Hainu kede amrinon lekaman shuneres doko shadvarm nikarin. And in skip Rashi, dekala demasisan hainu sheomrim hayom niskadesha seploni. So Rashi tells us right away that there's a difference between here. When we say that if you hear a rumor that a person is married, then we don't listen to the rumor. When you hear a rumor that the person is engaged, so it depends. In our Mishnah it says mikudeshes harezim mikudeshes. Over here it says mikudeshes. We don't listen to the rumor. So where do we listen to a rumor of mikudeshes? So as Rashi says, that the Gemara is about to explain, a rumor that somebody's mikudeshes is not enough. A rumor that somebody is mikudeshes, and the basis of the rumor is because people were coming in and out of a house where the beds were made, where the music was playing, where the neiros were lit, where they said that this woman was mikudeshes today. If all of those conditions apply, then if that's the rumor, mikudeshes is mikudeshes. If you just have a rumor that a woman was mikudeshes, you don't listen. But if the rumor is that a woman was mikudeshes with all of these details, and not only was she mikudeshes, we'll see very importantly in the Gemara, mikudeshes hayom, she was mikudeshes today, then we'll believe it. And obviously, as we said in this Gemara, it needs to be mikudeshes hayom be'ir ploni, in this ear to this guy. If you have all of those details, then and only then will we believe the rumor that she's actually mikudeshes.
Circumstantial evidence supporting it, is that?
So it's not exactly, it's still a rumor, because if we have circumstantial evidence, it would be from the category of rumor to edus. But it sounds like we have a rumor, but we have a big basis to the rumor. That's what Rashi is telling us. Amar Ula.
Are you saying that the date is Tzedakah today, or just we have a specific date?
We'll see in 1 second. Today. Amar Ula. Lo sheshamu kol havara. Just hearing gossip, just hearing a rumor that a woman is mikudeshes is not enough. Ela kadesh yuneros dokos umitos mutos bnei adam nechnasim v'yotzim omnim ploni miskadeshes hayom. All these conditions that I just mentioned, and people coming out and saying ploni is miskadeshes today. Miskadeshes v'dilma lo akacha. That can't be the language. It can't be that you hear people saying ploni's going to be mikudesh today. It should be that she was Mekudesh. Says the Gemara, you're right. Ema plonis niskacha hayom. Plonis was niskacha dafka today. So if the rumor that you hear is these people coming out of the wedding hall, quote unquote, and they're coming out and all these things and the band and the thing and this, and then you say, oh, what's going on? Ploni was just niskacha hayom. Again, talking about Kedushin, so there wouldn't necessarily be wedding band, but Niskacha Hayom, then and only then, under all those circumstances, do we believe it. Otherwise, if we hear a rumor that somebody was Niskacha, we don't believe it. V'chein tani levi lo sheyishmu kol havor ela kadesh yuner zogos mitos motzes v'nashim tovas l'or haner usmachos la ve'omas plonis meskadesh yom meskadeshes v'dil malo akacha amar papa, the same thing, ema plonis Niskacha yom. Amar Rabbi bar bar Chana amar Yochanan lo sheshama kol havor ela kadesh yuner zogos mitos motzes v'nei adam nichnasim v'yitzin. Fine. Now he adds one thing here. Amru davar zehu kol. If you hear the rumor, so that's the kol. What's the rumor? Says Rashi, if you hear plonis niskacha hayom, that's a kol, again, assuming we have all the other circumstances that we'll listen to. Lo amru davar zehu amsala. If you don't hear a kol, then it's an amsala. What's he talking about? We said in the Mishnah, what do we say in the Mishnah? That you have a rumor. Well, the rumor we're going to believe in certain circumstances, of which we just explained, but said in the Mishnah that the rumor we don't believe if there's an amsala, which we said is a mitigating factor. And the example we gave in the Mishnah was that if you hear a rumor that she was niskacha, but as part of the rumor you hear, what does it mean that she was niskacha? He threw the thing to her, he threw the kedushin to her, and it landed somewhere between him and her. We're not sure if it's closer to him or closer. So there's a mitigating factor preventing possibly the truth of the rumor. In that case, we're not going to believe it. So we see over here, the Gemara seems to make no sense. Lo amruda, if you don't hear any rumors, zehu amsala. What do you mean if you don't hear any rumors, that's the amsala? We dafka need an amsala, we dafka need a mitigating factor only if we hear a rumor. Says the Gemara, lo amru, what does it mean? V'halo amru v'lo klum. He didn't say anything. What are you talking about? No. When I say that that's an amsala, no. We're saying the following. La fuke mi dirabba baravhuna de amar amsala sha'amru afilu mikan vad yud yamim. Kamash malan lo amru hu dehavya amsala ha'amru lo havya amsala. The Gemara is based on Rashi explains as following. They're not saying that this is amsala. Of course, if there's no rumor, then there's no mitigating factors to the rumor. What does he mean? What does Rabbi Barachana mean when he says that if there's nothing, then there's no amsala? He's coming specifically to exclude exclude Rabba bar Rav Huna. Because if you remember yesterday, the Pashup shot in the Mishnah was that if you have a rumor, so you don't believe the rumor. If you have a rumor of miskadeshes with all of these circumstances, then you believe the rumor. But we said in the Mishnah that if you have a rumor of miskadeshes, even with all of these circumstances, but you have a mitigating factor. If you had all these people walking out of the hall, and they're saying, Hayom niskacha leploni, but how did he do the Kiddushin? He threw it, and it was karov la, karov to who, karov to him. We're not sure who it's karov to. Then even though you have the rumor, you have the mitigating factor of the rumor, and we're not going to believe the rumor. So we said that the mitigating factor seemingly needs to come right away. That means you can't have this rumor and then 3 days later say, oh wait, yes, I heard the rumor, but there's a mitigating factor because you forgot one part of the story, you threw it. So Rabba bar Rav Huna says no. Even up to 10 days. If you have a rumor of miskadeshes, Raizel miskadeshes. So we said if it fills all of these categories, if it fills all of these criteria, Raizel mikudeshes. If somebody comes within the next 10 days, I don't know if it's DAF the next 10 days. If somebody comes within the next 10 days and brings an amsala, brings a mitigating factor to that rumor that we had of mikadeshet, then we would turn around the rumor and we would say, you're right, we're not believing it, Raizel lo mikadeshes. Comes along Rabba bar Khan and says, no, I don't agree. Once you have the rumor and you accept it of miskadeshes, it has all the circumstances, Raizel miskadeshes. If a mitigating factor comes around the next day, too bad, too late. So he's dafka coming to exclude the opinion which says that a mitigating factor can come at any time, even 3, 4, 5 days later, saying no. Yes, mitigating factors will cause us to not believe the rumor, but a mitigating factor will only cause us not to believe the rumor if the mitigating factor comes at the same time that we hear the rumor. Once we hear the rumor and we believe it because it has all of these criteria, then even if a mitigating factor the next day, somebody comes and says, oh, that Kedushin that you heard the rumor about, Lemaisa, we're not sure where the Kedushin landed, too bad, and we're going to say that Raizel mikudeshes. Zak the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Huna, Amar Rav, Lo sheshamu kol havara, ela kadesha yomru ploni mehechan shama. He's adding another criteria. Not just that you heard a rumor, and not just that you heard a rumor of people walking out of the wedding hall, and not just that the rumor included that ploni niskacha hayom. That's not enough to believe the rumor. What else do you need? Ela kadesh yomu ploni mehechan shama mi ploni uploni mi ploni uvokin v'ochanat shemagin ledavar bar. No, the only way to believe a rumor is if we could get to the source of the rumor. If we can't get to the source of the rumor, then we're not going to believe it, even if we have all of these reasons to believe it. Davar habara edus mal yisahu. What are you talking about? If you're telling me that we need to get to the source of the rumor, by definition, it's not a rumor anymore. Once we get to the source, that's edus. So Ella Kiyas Rashmuel Bar Yudah Amar Rav Amar Afuna Amar Rav, the last skinny line on page Samad Aleph, Lo Sheshamu Kol Havara Ella Kadesh Yomru Ploni Mehechan Shama Mi Ploni Uploni Uploni V'Halchu Lahem LeMedina Sayam. No, what it's saying is, Elamaisa, you're right. If you have to trace it back, you don't have to trace back a rumor all the way to the beginning. But what it's saying is that if you want to believe a rumor, so you have to know me ploni, 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 and then the guy went to Medina Sayyam. If you're able to trace it back to the source, that's not a rumor anymore. That's edus. But if you trace it back to the source, and as we always go, oh, the source, he's out of town. Oh, the source, he's no longer working in this company, right? You call up the company and you want to speak to, oh, I spoke to that guy. So then you have your whole case ready to go. And like, I'm sorry, that person's not working here anymore. And you either got to start all over again or nobody cares. And nobody's going to be able to help you and they're just going to deny it. So in general, we believe the rumor, assuming it has all of those criteria. What does he mean when he says you got to go back to the source? No, if you go back to the source and you find the source, it's not a rumor anymore. But what happens if you go back to the source and the guy went to Medina Sayyam and we can't ask him anymore? That's when, if it has all of the criterias of the rumor, then we can actually go ahead and believe the rumor. Says the Gemara, a very fascinating thing now. So let's assume the following. Let's assume that we believe the rumor. Because, again, we tried to get to the bottom of the rumor, which is what we always have to do. But Lamaisa, we couldn't find the guy. He disappeared to Medina Sayyam. So we believe the rumor, and again, the rumor in this specific case of Miskadeshes, she's Miskadeshes, Raizel Miskadeshes, we believe the rumor, assuming that we had people walking out of the wedding hall, said Miskadeshes Hayom, fine. What happens if a week later, the guy from Medina Sayyam all of a sudden appears and he says, oh, that rumor, that's totally false. I made that up. That's why before I went on vacation, I thought it would be funny. So I made up this rumor that she was Miss Kadesh, and now he comes back. So we accepted the call because, again, we had all these people who were taken. It's hard to believe that we had all these people who basically went along. Again, it doesn't mean all these people. You had one person who went along with the rumor. So you went and you said this woman is Miss Kadeshes. Now, all of a sudden, the guy comes back from vacation and we find out that he made up the rumor. And Lamai said, what do we do now? We already said Miss Kadeshes. So are we mevatel the kol? Are we mevatel the kedusha now and say, okay, she really wasn't ever miskadeshes? Or once we believe the rumor, lamaisa, somehow this girl became miskadeshes to this guy because again we believe the rumor with all of these criteria, but lamaisa she's miskadeshes. There's nothing we can do about it. Says the Gemara. What?
You had all these.
This is assuming we had all the criteria that were fit.
So how could a guy make up a rumor and then have
again? You don't have to have all these criteria. No, you have right. You have a guy who made up the rumor, and then the might say there was some truth to it. And one guy, and there was a party, and there were neros, and there were dokos. It happens to be that they weren't miskadeshes. They were just going for a family barbecue, whatever it was. So I don't want to hear. Amalei Abayi of Yosef, maftalin and kala, olo maftalin. And what do we do when the guy shows up mi medinas hayam and says lo hayu dvar mayolam? So do we go ahead and are we mevatel the Kedushin, which never happened, or do we let a Kedushin, which never happened, but which was substantiated by a rumor, do we let it go? So we should say now, in the beginning of Maseches Kedushin, we start next week, you're saying there's 3 ways. No, there's 4 ways to get miskadeshes. Besides, Rekesef, Shtar, and Piyatz, if you have your friend start a rumor, miskadeshes. Says the Gemara, Amalei, Mida Amar Rav Chisda Ache Yishmu Mipiak Ksherim. Rav Chisda said that in order to believe a rumor, we have to hear from Ksherim people, not just from any stam person. Shma Mina, Maftalin, and Kala. So we see over here that we take rumors very seriously, and if we find out that it's not true, we're going to be mevatel the rumor. Amalei Adara, but no, we see that rumors are not taken so seriously. Because we see that we'll believe even women for rumors. So if we're going to believe even a woman for rumor, it's not kosher le'edus. So l'maisa, we see that we see that we don't take them so seriously. And if we believe the rumor, then even if we find out afterwards, shmamina lo maftalin and kala. Amalei asrusa ninhu. It's a machlokes. Bisura mivatle kala. Binaharda lo mivatle kala. But it's fascinating that it comes out that in naharda, if you go ahead and there's a rumor that a woman is miskadeshes, and we can't go ahead and we have all of the criteria, and then the guy shows up and said, oh, it was all a rumor. Since we believe the rumor because we went through all the criteria, Lamaisa, she stays miskadeshes to this man. Amar lei. Asya Rabbi Chama leavuha. So where are we? No. Hahi denafak Allah kala deikash digdash labar beirav. So there was a call that a woman was miskadesh to a son of the person of the house of Rav. Asi Rav Chama lavua. So the Rav Chama came to Avua Amar lei. Emeli hechi ava uvda. So a few days later, Rav Chama came to the father and said, what happened? Amarle al tenai kaddish. The whole thing was done on condition. Adaita de loazil lebechuze. The guy said, I'm being miskadesh you on condition that I don't go to bechuze. Ve'azal, and he went to bechuze. Amarle kevan de ba'ina dehavya kala lahavya amsala lav ko kiminach de mechaskas amsala. Fascinating. So what did we say before again? If at the time that you have the rumor, so you have the mitigating factor as well, we had a machlokes on top, but seemingly we paskin that unless you have the mitigating factor at the same time as the rumor, it's not going to help. So over here you had a rumor that this woman was miskacha lebeirav. They went through, they did all the criterias, and they checked out that it actually worked. Now all of a sudden they happened to be talking to the father the other day and said, oh, so tell me a little about the kedushin. Oh, the kedushin that my son did, oh, he did it al tanai. He did it what? Al tanai. Oh, we have an amsala, we have a condition, we have a mitigating factor. Paskins, no, too late. We already believe the rumor. The mitigating factor has to come at the time of the rumor. If you tell me a few days later that the whole thing was done with a tanai, too bad, and lamaisa, your son is mikudeshes to that woman. Says the Gemara, he denafak kala de katsha be'asifa de tuchla be'ina de be'shife. Not a guy you want your daughter bringing home. But the guy goes ahead and he's mikadesh the woman with the fodder, the leftovers of the dates, from the bank of the Shifi River. So what happens in this case? Now the case was that the guy was miskadeshes her, or the rumor was that the guy was miskacha her with the fodder of a date, with nothing, with something very, very small. And then, a few days later, the rumor was found to be false. And they found that the guy came back from Medina Siyam and he says, that whole thing was made up. What a joke. I made up the thing that my friend was miskache, a woman with some date fodder, and it's not true. So what do we do now? Well, it depends. Either you say, maftalin lei, alo miftalin lei. Either we say you're right, so we see that it was false, and might say we're mevatel the kedushin. But according to the other opinion of Naharda, we say lo maftalin alei. That even when we find out that it's false after the fact, lamaisa, once we heard miskadeshes, so lamaisa we say miskadeshes. So what do you do? So it says over here, the Gemara says something very fascinating. He says afil l'mandamar lo maftalin kol. This is going to be very important because this is going to give us the svara. Why, in fact, let's think about it outside for a second. Why, in fact, would we say lo maftalin alei? Makes no sense. We found, you were shaking your head before, we found that the rumor was false. Why would you say lo maftalin? Why would we not be mevatel the rumor? Okay, very nice they were mekudash, but they were never mekudash. So why would we make them stay married if they were never married? What do you think the svara is? Because what's going to happen? People are going to start to think, because as far as people know, they're married. People are not going to necessarily hear the second part of the rumor that says, or the second part that says, oh, the rumor is not true. All they're going to know is that they read a Facebook post that said that these people are miskadeshes. Next thing you know, they're not going to check the Facebook one day. By the time you check the Facebook 2 days later, forget it, you have 3,000 messages between yesterday and today. Lamaisa, if you're not keeping up every single second, you'll never be able to keep up. That's why I don't use Facebook. But Lamaisa, they're not going to see the Facebook post the day before and see that, oh, the whole thing was a rumor, the guy showed up from Medina Siam. As far as everybody in the world is concerned, this lady was miskadeshes based on this rumor. Now she's going to go ahead and marry another guy, and all of a sudden everything is going to be like, whoa, what's going on over here? But in this case, we're not worried. Why not? Says the Gemara, where the rumor was that the guy did Kiddushin with the father from a date, we're not worried, even if you say, again, if you say that Maftalinan Kala, nothing to talk about, so it's going to be Mevatel. The guy came back and this Mevatel, he said it's wrong. Even the one who says in general, when we find out that the rumor was false, we're not Mevatel the rumor, in this case we're going to be Mevatel the rumor. Why? Because we have a tzad to go ahead. Because when people hear that she got remarried or she married somebody else, they're going to say, oh, it's not that. It must be that she was never married to the first guy. Why? Because the part of the rumor was that he used the fodder. So when they hear, they're not going to think right away, oh, an Ashes Ish who was Mekadesh or somebody else went. They're going to say, it must be that the rabbis decided that it wasn't a Shaveh Pruta what he gave her, and therefore it's not a problem. And since the whole chashash is what people are going to think, and that's why we have to say, lo maftalin lay, even when we know that the rumor is false. Lamaisa, in a case where there would be no chashash, because there would be another way out, basically, that's what the Gemara seems to be saying. If we have another way out, because again, we have the rumor, and we know the rumor is false. So if we could get any way out of having people assume that they're married, even though they're really not married, if we can get any way out, so then Lamaisa, we're going to cancel the Kiddushin. So over here, we have a way out, because Lamaisa, we see that people, if they see her getting married, they're not going to think, oh, it's an Ashes Ish. They're going to think that Lamaisa, the father, was less than a Shaveh Pruta, and therefore we're going to let her out. Let's just see the Rashi and then we'll take a question. Meimar Armei, the last Rashi on the page, Kishetinasev la'acher lo yomer. They're not going to say, quote, Re'u Eshes Isha Nises. They're not going to say, oh, look, this woman who was an Eshes Ish, who was Mekadesh to somebody else through the rumor, is going to go ahead and getting married to somebody else. The Meimar Armei, they're going to say the following, quote, Ainu Rabbanan Bahu Atzifa, right? Because again, the rumor that they heard was not just that she was Mekadeshes, it's that she was Mekadeshes with some date fodder, and they were all laughing about it. It must be Ainu Rabbanan Bahu Atzifa, V'lo Hava Be'Shaveh Pruta, Distame Lo Chashiv, because it's not Chashiv. Tehalo Mivatlin on Kala, when we say that we're not Mivatel the Kal, Eino Ela B'Mnei HaChashad. It's only because of the Chashad that people are going to speak about it and say that an Eshes Ish, a woman who was Mekadesh to somebody, got married to somebody else. V'Hacha Leka Chashad. Here there's no Chashad, because again we have a way out. Yes? Is there a question?
Three questions.
We're running out of time. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, 1 second.
Just a quick thought. The Gemara seems to be selective in how it uses rumors. You know, the only two people that are not included in this rumor are the woman, and the man.
Yeah, what are they saying?
There's more. What's that?
No, why?
They say-
No, why? They could be
They're
throwing
not
up their.
involved in this.
They could be throwing up their heads and saying that we're not miskadeshes, or they say, "Oh, this is cool. Okay, we're married, so let's just."
Or they're not. It's just a rumor out there.
Okay.
All of a sudden they're married now, and all of a sudden when they happen, when she does get married, all of a sudden everybody knows about that wedding, not about the other thing.
Well, again, everybody knows about the other rumor that she was mikudash to this other guy, supposedly. She might know about it. She might be throwing up her hands. But what do you want to do? Okay, she made a mistake, so now she wants to get out of it. So she's claiming it never happened. But Lamais, it happened. When you hear a rumor, everybody's going to hear the rumor. Everybody's going to believe it, even if she's claiming that it never happened. Rumors don't start to people, right?
She's saying she's part of this.
She's claimed, no, even if she's claiming that I never got married to the guy, nobody's going to believe her. Lamaisa, they're going to say, what do you mean? Again, when we say rumor, we're calling it a rumor. As far as everybody else is concerned, it's not a rumor, it's what they heard from their mother, and what their mother's mahjong partner told them, and what this one told them, and as far as they know, it's not a rumor, it's just they don't know the source of the rumor. We hear a lot of things that we just assume, we are calling this a rumor, but Lamaisa, it's we believe things that we hear all the time. We don't look at that as a rumor, it happens to be that. Usually it's false, it's Lashon Hara, so it happens to be a rumor. We don't look at things that we hear from other people as rumors, we look at them as, okay, that's a fact, that's what I heard from somebody else. We find out later that it wasn't true.
The point about in the last case with the date fodder, as you referred to it,
Yeah.
you have an amsala there, and that's the fact that it's not a Shava Pruta. It's not that that comes.
But that
back.
wasn't part of the rumor. That's the point. It's an interesting point. But an amsala, a mitigating factor, is only when the part of. But it's not just that you need at the time. It's that the part of the rumor was the amsala. That means they got miskadesh. Part of the rumor is that they got miskadesh, but the kedushin that was done is when he threw it in the thing in the middle, and we're not sure who it was close to over here. When they were doing the rumor over here, nobody was saying they got miskadesh, but he used fodder. Assuming everybody just assumed they were miskadesh, it happens to be that the facts on the ground were that he used fodder. So now when they hear that she got remarried, they're going to go back to the facts on the ground. But nobody was questioning the fact that it was a good kedushin at the time. They assumed that it was a good kedushin at the time. They thought it was a little bit silly that the guy didn't give her an engagement ring and he gave her an apple as a kedushin, but they didn't think twice about it. Okay, so they're mikadesh with an apple. After the fact, when they hear that she married somebody else, now we put two and two together, and now all of a sudden, the fact that he only gave her an apple, that must be the reason that she wasn't ever married to him.
So all we're saying in this last case is they're trying to find a way out.
Yes.
But if they can, then
if they can't, then according to the thing that says lo maftalin, then they're stuck with the rumor.
And why
okay.
BAYT didn't just put a chraza saying, sorry, these guys are not married.
Again, they can, but we're talking about the days before Facebook. We're talking about where, you hear something and then you go to Medina Sayyam and that's it. As far as you know, the last thing you heard a year ago, right? You heard 5 years ago, it happened all the time in the time of the war. That's all you hear. Last time you heard she's married, next thing you hear, you check in with your parents 2 years later and she's married to another guy and you're like, what's going on over here? And all of a sudden, she becomes the zona of the town. Hahidinafik ala kala diskacha. Lechad, so there was a nafik that a woman was niskadesh, lechad mi b'nei planya, from one of Planya's kids. Now, Planya had a bunch of kids. Planya had a 6-year-old, and a 10-year-old, and a 14-year-old, and an 18-year-old, and we weren't sure which one of Planya's kids they were actually married to. Amarava, who thinks that they're getting married to 7-year-old? I just have to share this joke, because I have one extra second. I heard a great joke this week. They said there was a bar mitzvah and an afraf in Satmar. I just thought of it because there's a bar mitzvah this week. So there's a bar mitzvah and afraf in Satmar. So they said to the Rabbi, they didn't know what to do. What do you do when you have a bar mitzvah and an afraf? Who gets maftir? Usually the bar mitzvah boy gets maftir, but usually the afraf gets maftir as well. So what do you do in Satmar when there's a bar mitzvah and an afraf? So they went to the Rabbi and they said, who should get maftir? So the Rabbi thinks for a second and he goes, give it to whichever one is older. Okay, says the Gemara. Amarava. Afilu lamandi amar lo maftalin ankala. I like that one. Okay. Afilu lamandi amar lo maftalin ankala. So according to Rava, even according to the one who says that we're not mevatel akol, again using the same example, beha maftalin ankala. When the rumor was that they got engaged, it's interesting. I was thinking about this. I didn't see this in the Rishonim. But if they didn't say which one they got married to, so I didn't understand why we would believe the rumor as well. If you remember before, we said we only believed the rumor when it was Hayom Niskacha Liploni to Ploni. So I didn't understand this part of how we even believe the rumor in the first place, because we don't have the specific person, which one of the sons, then we shouldn't have believed it in the first place. But I didn't see that asked by the Rishonim. But the Gemara says that she was Niskacha to one of them, and then we find out that the whole thing was false. So even if you say in general, Lo Maftalin and Kala, Beha Maftalin and Kala. Here we're going to be Mevatel the Kol. Why? Meimar Amrei, I knew who Rabbanan b'kiddushe v'kiddushe katanu, because we have an out. Because when people hear that she was divorced, that she got married to somebody else, they can hear, it must be that she was mekadesh to the 7-year-old. The 7-year-old can't do kiddushin, and the ma'aseh was never a good kiddushin. So there you go again. You have this it's not a mitigating factor, but this is an actual way of out of the chashad. Then there was a case where there was a rumor that she was engaged to a katan who looked like he was 20, but he was really 6. The same thing over here. When they hear that she got married, they're going to say, how could she get married? She was Mekudesh. And you say, the guy was a 6-year-old, so we have a way out, because everybody's going to realize that it's not that she was Mekudesh to the first guy and she nevertheless married another guy. It's that the first Kedushin was never good. Okay, we're only going to do a few more lines. I told Rabbi Ziering he'll pick up in the middle of this DAF, because I didn't have half an hour. I only had half an hour in the first DAF. So let's just finish a few more lines. We said in the Gemara, in the Mishnah again, that the rumor works according to all the circumstances that we described today in the Gemara, as long as there was no mitigating factor. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna, Amsala sha'amru, this Amsala that you're speaking about, afilu mikan v'ad asar yamim, like we saw over there. We saw that there was an opinion on the other daf, that even up to 10 days. And we said that most people argue on that and say no, that the rumor needs to come, the mitigating factor needs to come at the same time as the rumor. But Rabba bar Rav Huna, as we saw before, holds, no, even if the mitigating factor comes later, it's going to be okay. Rav Zvid Amar, something, a big chiddush. B'makom amsala choshishin la'amsala. Whether you say that the mitigating factor needs to come right away or it needs to come within 10 days, either way, Rav Zvid holds that not only will an amsala get rid of the rumor, even something that's not even a mitigating factor but has like the smell of a mitigating factor. That means basically, as Rashi says, Pesach yesh l'davar. And again, it makes sense based on what we're saying. We're trying to get rid of the rumor as much as possible. So not only do we need a mitigating factor, even if we don't have a mitigating factor, we have some type of Pesach to say that this rumor is not a true rumor, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take advantage of that, to say it's not a true rumor. But it says in the Mishnah, as long as there's no amsala, which implies that if there's a sniff to an amsala, it's not going to be enough. No, the Gemara, the Mishnah means that even if you have even a Pesach ledavar, some type of not only mitigating factor, but close to a mitigating factor, we're going to believe it and get rid of the rumor. So he says to Rav Papa, do you not hold the following? Vehatnan, we'll see what the following is in a minute. Niskacha ve'achakach ba'bala muteres lachzor. The Mishnah tells us that if a woman is miskadeshes to somebody, and then her first husband comes back, she can go back to the first husband. Let's see the case in Rashi. Amalei Rav Kana, right to the left over there, a few lines up. Amalei Rav Kana Rav Papa ve'adlo tispira. You seem to imply you seem to hold that we're not going to, right, because you seem to be arguing on Razvid. Razvid said that even if we have a Pesach ledavar, we're going to get rid of the rumor. You seem to be saying that with a Pesach ledavar, there won't be enough to get rid of a rumor. But I'm going to bring you a Mishnah which shows that even if it's not a pure Amsala, even if it's not a mitigating factor, but it's even a Pesach ledavar, it's even close to a mitigating factor, I'm going to bring you a proof from a Mishnah that we try to get rid of the marriage, we try to get rid of the rumor as much as possible. Why? Where do we see this? We have a Mishnah. Says Rashi, Isha shahalach ba'ala l'medina sayam. If a woman goes, her husband goes overseas. Ubayt echad v'amala meis balechem. We know if one aide comes and says your husband died overseas, she's allowed to get remarried. So what does she do? V'niskacha. Not that she gets married. She becomes miskadeshes. We'll see that there's a difference between niskacha and nises. And she goes ahead and she becomes miskadeshes to another person. And now the husband comes back. Muteres lachzor l'rishon. She can go back to the rishon and seemingly doesn't necessarily even need a get from the sheni because he was alive the whole time. Ve'ilu gabe nises, and we'll have to explain why. But by nised, if she marries a second guy, kitani hasam teitze mizeh mizeh. If she marries a second guy, even though the aide came and said your husband was dead, if she marries a second guy, the halacha is that she can't stay married to the the second guy, obviously, and now she needs to get divorced by the first guy as well. V'afal gav dan nusahi sharei beizin haroli nasa. Even though she could throw up her hand and say, "Why can I go back to my original husband? What do you want me to do?" An aide echad came and said that my husband died, mishum chashasha delolemu gerish rishon v'nasa sheni, because of the chashash that people are going to say that the first one divorced her before he left and the second one married her, ve'achshav chozeres lo mishenisis, and now she's going back to the first husband. If we let her go back to the first husband, then lamaisa people are going to think she's going back to the first husband. What's wrong with that? Because if she gets married to somebody in between, you can't go back to your first husband. If the first husband divorces you and then changes his mind the next day, he could take you back. But if she marries somebody in between, she can get divorced from him and go to another third guy, but she can't go ahead and get married to the first guy. So we see over here that the Gemara is saying that when she's niskacha, and everybody knew that she was niskacha, there wasn't just a rumor. This was like, you can't have anything more than that. Everybody heard that she was niskacha to this new guy, and nevertheless we're going to let her go back to the first one. What do we see over here? We see that even if there's a makom amsala, we're going to get rid of a rumor. Even if there's a samach ladavar to get rid of a rumor, because here it wasn't even a rumor, and we're going to get rid of the kiddushin. Says the Gemara, V'atnan mishkaj v'cha babala muteres achsor, lav mishum de'amrinan al tanai kaddish. Rashi, Lav mishum de yesh kan makom amsala lisma chalava. We're not letting her remarry the first guy because there's something like an amsala. Dechi mahadrila legavra amina. When she goes back to the first guy, they're going to say vada yesh pesach ledavar. You know what must have happened when people see her go back to the first guy? What's going to happen? They're going to say shal tanai kitcha sheni shem yavo bala shegir shem b'medina sayam sheyu kiddushin b'tein sheyu bala chaviv la elakach girsha shlo yachol lavo. They're going to say the following, and we're making up quote unquote a rumor, and therefore therefore we see that we can, again, for our purposes, we see that we try to do whatever we can to make everything kosher. That's the point of this Mishnah. But you see over here that what's going to happen when she marries the first guy again? What are people going to say when she goes back to the first guy? They're not going to start all these rumors. They're going to say, you know what? It must be that when she was miskadeshes to the second guy, he did it on condition that the first husband doesn't come back, because he knows that she loves her first husband. She didn't want him to die, but she heard that he died, and therefore he's going to say, you know, there's maybe a chance he's going to come back. Probably not, but maybe a chance. So I'm going to be miskadeshes to you, or you'll be miskadeshes to me, but on condition that he doesn't come back. And that's what people are going to say when she goes back to the first. Even though this mitigating factor never happened, and it's something that people might not think, we're going to give the benefit of the doubt and assume that that's what people are going to think, and therefore we're going to let her go back to her first husband. Says the Gemara. And therefore, how can you, Rav Papa, hold that we're not going to use amsalas, we're not going to use not just mitigating factors, we'll use mitigating factors, we're not going to use pesach ledavers, we're not going to use other things to get rid of rumors. We see over here that to get rid of the rumors or to get rid of the thoughts that people might have, we're going to go and we're going to make up this svara that say, you know what, we'll let her go back to the first husband because people are going to give her the benefit of the doubt and assume that she was only miskadeshes to the second guy, al tanai, and therefore you see that we do things when we can to give a pesach ledavar. Says the Gemara, he says back to her, no. Shani hasam de asi bal v'kamar. You're right. In general, amsalas, of course, I'm not going to argue with. But pesach ledavars, that's a little bit far-fetched. So then in this case, why are we let her going back to her first husband? Is it not because we're making up this pesach ledavar that everyone should believe? No. Lamaisa, that's not because of that. When they see the first husband right in front of them, so then they're going to understand that Lamaisa, she was never married to the second guy. It's not a din that they need to make up this whole thing. It's that Lamaisa, when the first husband shows up, so it's clear that he was never dead. If he was never dead, then the kedushin she did to the second guy was never chal, and therefore she could go back to the first guy. The obvious question becomes what? Why in a case where she marries the second guy, can she not go back to her first husband?
She had relations with him.
Ah, excellent. So no. So who cares? So she had relations with him. Who cares?
Okay.
No, I'm asking. So the
then she was really married.
So then she was an Eshet Ish.
Right.
So says the Gemara, let's see. Shani asam da'asi ba'al v'kamar ihachi niseis nami. If then if she was married, so then she should be able to go back also. Why does she need a get? Ha'asa ba'ala v'kai v'lav nisuin havu. That's interesting. So I didn't think about that before. So, ihachi niseis nami. So by niseis, well, what's the hava mean in the Gemara? In niseis, she should be able to go back to the guy also.
Because you say it's an onus, she didn't know at the time.
Because she didn't know, right? So in the case of onus, where if a married woman is raped, Rahman al-Itzlan, so she can go back to her original husband. So if she relied on the testimony of one witness, so we can say that it was an onus, and she should be able to go back to her original husband, just like if she was mikadesh to the second guy, she goes back to her original husband. Says the Gemara, no. Niseis ta'avda isura kansura rabanan. Niskacha de lo avda isura lo kansura rabanan. No. That when she had bia with the guy, we're going to give her a penalty. Why? Because we know that Lamaisa 1/8 came. And this is a famous idea. That when 1/8 comes, we accept 1/8 for the thing to let an aguna, to free an aguna. But we also know that the woman has a responsibility to do research herself. So in a case where she goes ahead and she does the kedushin with the second guy, she didn't really do anything wrong. She did kedushin. She didn't do as much research as she should have. But Lamaisa, she didn't do anything harmful. But at the end of the day, when she has bia with the guy, because she was nisseis to him, so now we're going to say, you're right. Really, you were an onus. Really, you were always married to guy number one. Really, you were never married to guy number two. But since you didn't do your research like you should have, and you just believed the Eidechad who said that your husband died without doing any research on the subject, Lemaisa, we're going to punish you and give you a kanas that even though mitzad hadin you should be able to return to your first husband, we're not going to let you return to your first husband. But again, everyone agrees that an amsala is going to work, a mitigating factor is going to work. The question is, if you have a pesach ledavar, will that work as well? According to some, it'll work. According to Papa, it won't work. What about that Mishnah? That Mishnah wasn't a case where you had a Pesach Ledavar where we made up some svara. It's that when the husband actually shows up, so we have proof, living proof, that Lamaisa, she was never married to the second guy. Amar Ravashi, one more line, Kol Kala Delois Chazik Bebeidina Lav Kalahu. That in general, besides for all of the factors that we spoke about before that you need, and all of the circumstances you need in order to make the rumor to be substantiated, it also has to be Chazik Bebeidina. Now obviously that doesn't mean with an aid, because if it was substantiated with an aid, then that's not a rumor anymore. But Rashi says, Shalo Batgu Beis Din Acharav Shalo Teishmias Kol Avar. The Beis Din needs to go in and look to make sure and do a little bit of research to make sure that it's not just a rumor. So we'll pick up here tomorrow.